Welcome to Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. This podcast was created with help from AI tools, so double-check any quotes before you drop trivia at your next movie night. Today we're heading to 1920s Hollywood with Minions and Monsters, where the world's most lovable troublemakers discover that making monster movies can be even more chaotic than starring in them.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, just imagine time traveling back to like a Hollywood executive suite in 1927, right?
Okay.
And you're telling these studio bosses that the greatest, most meticulously crafted tribute to their whole cinematic golden age wouldn't star some dramatic actor. It would star a group of, gibberish-speaking, overall-wearing yellow Tic Tacs.
Right, like the ultimate pop culture paradox.
Exactly. Oh, and you'd also have to tell them that this exact same love letter to classic cinema would somehow trigger a massive real-world religious boycott.
Which is just wild. We are looking at a franchise that is fundamentally known for harmless slapstick, right? And it suddenly decided to become like the most sophisticated piece of cinema history of the year.
Yeah, they really aimed high.
They did. But that ambition kind of completely backfired in a way.
Huh.
So to understand how a movie about little yellow blobs became a lightning rod, we really have to look at what happens when you try to evolve a multi-billion-dollar formula.
So true.
So let's just set the stage for you. The year is 1927. That puts us a full 41 years before the events of the 2015 Minions film.
Right, way back.
We're following three specific Minions here, James, Henry, and Ed. They've managed to get themselves all the way to Hollywood, but their timing is just terrible.
Well, yeah, because of the advent of the talkies. I mean, in the silent era, physical comedy totally ruled,
Yeah, obviously.
You didn't need to understand Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton to laugh at them falling off a building. But the second that directors actually needed actors to deliver clear, intelligible dialogue into a microphone.
The Minions are out of a job.
Exactly. They speak exclusively in this blended, high-pitched nonsense language, so they were completely sidelined.
Which, of course, forces them into this desperate pivot, right? They have this sheer burning passion to achieve stardom. So they decide, you know what? We're going to circumvent the studio system and make our own ultimate monster movie.
Right, but they don't do it the normal way.
No. They don't use makeup or special effects at all. They literally steal a magical spell book from one of their former evil sorcerer bosses to cast actual real monsters for their film.
Which goes exactly as poorly as anyone over the age of 5 would expect.
Totally.
They end up summoning this tiny Lovecraftian creature named Gumi. And when we say Lovecraftian, we're talking full-blown cosmic horror here.
Tentacles and everything.
Yeah, tentacles, ancient evil, geometry that just doesn't quite make sense. And then Gumi spirals entirely out of control and rips open a portal, unleashing Irene.
Irene, who is this massive, multi-eyed void monster. Just classic Minions chaos.
Right.
I actually found myself thinking of this as a sort of twisted version of Singing in the Rain.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you have the exact same setup actors struggling with the transition to sound film. But imagine if Gene Kelly had accidentally summoned an apocalyptic void demon instead of just joyfully tap dancing in the puddles.
Yeah, that definitely flips the tone completely.
It really does.
Yep.
And the filmmakers didn't pull any punches with who they brought in to populate this 1920s nightmare. Like, Jesse Eisenberg is playing Dort, who's an alien robot.
Right.
You have Jeff Bridges pulling double duty, playing rival studio heads Frank and Elwood Bright. Christoph Waltz is this pretentious film director named Max.
And I mean, the list just keeps going. Allison Janney is in there as a museum guide named Olivia. Zoe Deutsch plays a suffragette named Debbie. Trey Parker voices the monster Gumi.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, plus you have these heavy-hitting voice actors like Bobby Moynihan and Phil Lamar, and even a completely random cameo by George Lucas.
Wait, George Lucas? I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's wild.
I have to admit, though, seeing that cast list gave me pause at first. Like, how do you possibly balance scenes featuring heavy-hitting, dramatic Oscar winners with main characters who exclusively speak a made-up language?
Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Right. It feels like the human actors would just be talking to a brick wall.
Well, to understand the mechanics of how that actually works, we have to look at the brain of Pierre Coffin. He's the creator of the Minions. He voices all of them. And he was actually incredibly hesitant to return for this film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had intentionally stepped back from the franchise for a while.
Oh, because he felt they were losing their core identity. I remember reading about this. I loved coming across his notes on this in the sources. He explicitly said his his French sensibility threw up a little bit,
Yeah.
some of the previous sequel.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
He hated plot lines where the villains were suddenly falling in love and getting married. He felt it just completely betrayed what the minions were supposed to be.
Exactly. He felt they were being treated merely as generic creatures,
Ah,
or just mindless henchmen.
well,
But while he was developing Minions and Monsters with co-writer Brian Lynch, Coffin had this fundamental paradigm shift. He realized the Minions are not henchmen. The Minions are 10-year-old kids.
oh wow. That makes so much sense.
Right. Think about how a 10-year-old operates. They're irresponsible, they defy authority purely for the fun of it, they leave a huge mess wherever they go, but they are entirely driven by these intense, fleeting passions.
Yeah, so once you view them through the lens of neighborhood kids trying to shoot a movie in their backyard with their dad's camcorder, the whole dynamic with that A-list human cast just clicks.
Perfectly?
The humans are the exhausted adults, and the minions are the chaotic kids.
Ugh.
And that childhood passion is entirely communicated through minionese, which is wildly misunderstood by audiences, I think.
Oh, totally misunderstood. People think Coffin just goes into a recording booth and babbles. But when you actually break down the linguistic math of Minionese, it is this brilliant, calculated mix of English, French, Spanish, Italian, Korean, Japanese, and Hindi. Like, famous words include bello for hello and poupe for goodbye.
And Coffin actually instituted a really strict rule for Brian Lynch during the writing process, didn't he?
He did. He refused to let the script contain any written gibberish. The entire screenplay had to be written in plain, grammatically correct English.
Because he needed the sheet music. It's like jazz improvisation.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
couldn't just blow random notes out of a trumpet and call it jazz. You need an underlying melody so you know exactly what emotion you're riffing on. And Coffin translates the intent of the English script entirely through tone, melody, and the physical animation of the character.
Which is so hard to pull off.
There was this one brilliant gag where the characters are hiding out in a damp ravioli factory. And the human director simply reaches over and pulls a smoking pipe out of the mouth of a minion named Dick.
Oh, I love that scene. It's an absolute masterclass in physical comedy replacing dialogue. Totally.
That one physical action visually strips the minion of his assumed authority, right?
Yeah.
And the specific melodic tone of his minionese reaction tells the audience exactly how profoundly offended he is.
Even though the words literally do not exist.
Exactly. It bypasses the language center of the brain entirely. By stripping away strict grammar and relying purely on emotional sound and physical animation, the language completely transcends cultural barriers.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you were watching the film in Tokyo, Paris, or New York. You understand exactly what is happening. It is universal comedy, which is the exact same mechanism that made the silent film era work in the 1920s.
Which naturally brings us to the visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Because if the dialogue is a careful pastiche of world languages, the visual landscape is just this massive obsessive scavenger hunt of cinema history.
It really is.
The animators essentially turned the frame into a Where's Waldo of classic monsters.
It is relentless. Like, there is a nod to the 1954 classic creature from the Black Lagoon, which serves as a callback to the fish lips villain from the 2015 movie.
Oh, right. But my absolute favorite is the mummy sequence.
That is hilarious.
They encounter a 1932-style mummy acting as one of their historical bosses, and the minions, being minions, accidentally kill this ancient, terrifying creature by using his sacred wrappings as toilet paper.
Such a classic Minion joke.
And to elevate the joke, the music playing underneath this deeply stupid gag isn't an authentic 1930s track. It's the sweeping, epic action score from the 1999 Brendan Fraser mummy film.
Right, the anachronism is the punchline there. And they pull a similar trick with Spielberg's Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
We see the classic shark fin slicing through the water, approaching a little otter. The tension is built exactly like the 1975 masterpiece. But then the tiny Lovecraftian monster Goomy just surfaces, screams at the shark, and scares the great white away.
It's so good. Then you have the entire King Kong metaplot, where the minion James travels to a remote island to film real monsters, mirroring the 1933 original.
Yeah, and Irene, the massive void monster, is functionally the Blob from 1958.
Just this giant orange ooze absorbing everything in its path.
Exactly. And Jesse Eisenberg's character, Dort, if you know your sci-fi, he is a direct visual mashup of the alien Klaatu and the robot Gort from the 1951 classic The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Wow, that's such a deep cut.
They even squeezed in a background nod to Vincente Minnelli's The Bad and the Beautiful, which is a deep-cut drama about the ruthlessness of Hollywood.
Okay, but let me stop you there, though.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, as an adult who loves film history, that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But do the kids sitting in the theater holding a bucket of popcorn actually care about a 1950s sci-fi reference or a Vincente Minnelli nod?
No, not at all. But they don't have to, and that is the mechanical genius of the film's structure.
Right.
It operates simultaneously on two completely separate tracks.
Oh.
On track one, for the kids, it is pure kinetic slapstick. It's yellow blobs falling over, screaming, hitting each other with mallets, running from a giant orange blob.
Classic Minions.
Right. But on track two, for the adults, it's a rigorous historical scavenger hunt. The film isn't just parodying these old movies for cheap laughs. It uses the Minions' perspective, this chaotic, joyful lens, to genuinely celebrate the enduring magic of the golden age of Hollywood.
It treats a century of cinema history as a literal playground.
Exactly. But, a visual playground is only half the illusion.
Right, the sound.
You cannot successfully celebrate the golden age of Hollywood without the authentic sound of the golden age. The visual homages would absolutely fall flat if the auditory landscape felt cheap or synthesized.
So true.
So to truly honor 1920s and 30s Hollywood, the composer, John Powell, refused to use digital shortcuts. He demanded a full 85-piece orchestra and a choir of 60 singers.
I read that his wife actually helped book some of those singers, right?
Yeah.
Like she's a soprano in the LA Master Chorale.
Yeah, she was. And it wasn't just about the size of the orchestra. It was about the physics of the room they played in. They recorded the score in Culver City on the historic Barbra Streisand scoring stage on the Sony lot.
Which is legendary.
It really is. That is the exact acoustic space where iconic MGM musicals like The Wizard of Oz were scored. The wood on the walls, the shape of the ceiling, the history of Hollywood cinema is literally baked into the acoustics of that room.
Powell basically acted like a musical mad scientist, treating the score as the secret main character of the film.
Oh, absolutely.
The music physically guides the Minions through different cinematic eras. Like when the film transitions into a Western sequence, Powell doesn't just play generic cowboy music. He actively mixes the lonely whistling trumpets of Ennio Morricone with the sweeping open prairie strings of Aaron Copland and Elmer Bernstein.
Yeah, he really knew what he was doing. And the technical execution of the film noir sequence is what totally blew my mind.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, when James tries to play a grizzled detective, Powell channeled Max Steiner, but during the recording, Powell noticed the orchestra sounded too lush, too polished.
Like a modern movie.
Exactly. It sounded like a modern movie. So he purposefully cut the string section in half. He understood that 1930s microphone technology was incredibly limited and couldn't pick up the full resonance of a massive string section.
That is so smart.
Right. By physically having the musicians, he made the track sound authentically clunky and constrained, perfectly mimicking a 1930s recording.
Wow. And he does the same thing for the Citizen Kane homage too, right? He mimics Bernard Herrmann's dark, foreboding sound by pushing the low bassoons, the contrabassoons, and quiet tubular bells to the front of the mix.
Yeah, it creates this heavy, lurking atmosphere.
And when Dorth the Alien is marching down the street with his fanatical minion followers, Powell pivots to a full Soviet march. He uses the composers like Shostakovich and Prokofiev, who are famous for that heavy, oppressive, boots marching on pavement brass sound, as the inspiration for this mad, patriotic anthem.
It's incredible, and what's brilliant is what all these disparate musical styles represent when you put them in one room. Powell highlighted a piece of historical context that totally reframed how I hear old movies.
Oh, the cultural collision thing.
Yeah. The iconic Hollywood sound we associate with the Golden Age wasn't just born out of thin air in California. It was the result of a massive cultural collision. During the rise of the Nazis in Europe, brilliant classical virtuosos guys playing for the Berlin Philharmonic fled to Los Angeles.
Wow, right.
To make a living, they were forced into Hollywood recording studios right alongside American jazz musicians.
It's the ultimate musical odd couple.
It really is.
You had classically trained European musicians who demanded strict adherence to the sheet music, trying to collaborate with American brass players whose entire background was improvising with Duke Ellington.
Right. It's like trying to force a Michelin star French chef to run a Texas BBQ pit.
Yes, but the friction between those two worlds is what made it delicious. Hollywood shoved them all together, and that brilliant, messy cultural mishmash birthed the cinematic sound we know today.
Exactly. And Powell, being a British guy, bringing his own prog rock influences into an American animated movie, he views his Minions score as a direct continuation of that distinctly American tradition of the musical melting pot. He treated this cartoon with the utmost reverence.
But this is the crazy part. That reverence is exactly where the trap was set.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because Powell and the animators treated the source material so authentically, they accidentally crossed a line. When you successfully recreate the authentic, terrifying atmosphere of a 1920s demonic horror film, even if the characters summoning the demon are yellow blobs, some people in the audience are actually going to feel a sense of terror.
Right. Which brings us to the massive real-world controversy that directly hit the film's bottom line.
We have to talk about the elephant in the room.
We do. Because despite the brilliant craftsmanship and the stellar cast, Minions and Monsters suffered the lowest domestic opening in the history of the franchise.
Unbelievable.
It brought in $36.4 million over its first 3 days and $61.4 million over the 5-day July 4th stretch. For a franchise that routinely clears $1 billion in its sleep, that is an absolute cliff dive.
And the drop wasn't because of superhero fatigue or a bad marketing campaign either.
No, not at all.
According to a widely circulated article from Movie Guide, a massive segment of Christian parents and family organizations pushed back heavily, and in many cases boycotted the film over its cult themes.
Yeah, and the debate centers entirely on the plot mechanics we outlined earlier. The character James doesn't just wave a sparkly magic wand, right? He uses a Necronomicon-style spellbook.
And for those unfamiliar with horror lore, the Necronomicon is the ultimate forbidden book of the dead.
Exactly. James performs an incantation in a dark room lit by candles and actually summons a demon rooted in the Cthulhu mythos.
So for critics of the film, like Dr. Ted Baer from Movie Guide, this wasn't just a harmless joke. Their argument is rooted in the mechanics of desensitization.
Right. They cite specific biblical passages from Deuteronomy and Galatians that strictly condemn magic and sorcery.
Yeah, and we want to make it clear, we're just reporting what the sources say here. We aren't endorsing any specific viewpoint.
Of course, but their concern isn't that a cartoon spellbook is going to magically turn a 7-year-old into a warlock.
No.
The argument is that media trains the brain. By turning witchcraft and demonic summoning into a slapstick punchline, you are training a child's eye to stop flinching at concepts that these groups believe are fundamentally spiritually dangerous.
Right, and you can see the logic there. If you believe the occult is a real present danger, wrapping it in a cute yellow package doesn't make it safe. It makes it subversive.
Yeah. But on the other side of the aisle, the defenders of the film, which interestingly included several Christian commentators analyzing the film on platforms like TikTok, argue that the context of fantasy changes the equation completely.
Right. The defense relies on the mechanism of the literary device.
Yeah.
To them, fantasy magic in a fictional setting does not equate to real-world occultism.
Exactly. I mean, C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien used magic extensively in their work to tell moral stories. So the defenders argue that enjoying a slapstick cartoon about a clumsy blob mispronouncing Latin from a spooky book doesn't compel children to start drawing pentagrams on the living room floor.
It perfectly illustrates the impossible tightrope of family entertainment, really. You know, you have to ask, how does a massive studio balance the creative desire to tell a spooky, affectionate Golden Age monster story without accidentally alienating the very parents who buy the movie tickets?
It's so tough. It just shows how the exact same piece of media can be processed completely differently depending on the theological lens of the viewer. To Pierre Coffin and John Powell, this movie is a joyful, meticulously crafted playground celebrating old Hollywood tropes.
But to a subset of parents, it's a piece of media actively crossing a spiritual boundary.
Right, and the irony is just staggering when you step back and look at it. The Despicable Me franchise is a $5.6 billion empire built almost entirely on safe, harmless, chaotic silliness.
Right, totally safe.
But with Minions and Monsters, the filmmakers genuinely tried to evolve. They aimed higher. They tried to create a sophisticated, meta-cinematic love letter to the art of filmmaking itself.
But in doing so, they accidentally stepped on a cultural landmine. It really raises the ultimate question for Hollywood executives moving forward. When you have a safe, proven formula that prints billions of dollars on autopilot, is the real monster the risk of trying something entirely new? It really makes you wonder if they'll ever take a creative swing like this again. Maybe next time, Gene Kelly should just stick to dancing in the puddles. And that wraps our trip through Minions and Monsters. If you enjoy this episode, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow movie fans, and let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few more bananas along the way.